This clip is from my conversation with near-death experience researcher Don Winter, an author, former military intelligence officer, and investigative journalist for shows like 48 Hours, Dateline, Nightline, Discovery Channel, and the BBC, who has solved countless murders and studied thousands of near-death experiences to understand what really happens when we die. This week's guest is former U.S. Air Force intelligence and investigative journalist Don Winter, known from shows such as 48 Hours, Dateline, Nightline, the Discovery Channel, BBC, and others. Beyond his work exposing criminal networks and catching serial killers in Latin America, Don is also a leading researcher of near-death experiences, building one of the most comprehensive NDE case archives anywhere. He brings military precision, investigative rigor, and a rare depth of insight to his study into what happens at the edge of life. In this week's episode, we'll learn about all of that, plus so much more. I know I reached out to you out of the blue. You never met me before this, but and I'm super glad that we got to connect. Thanks for joining today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
So as far as topics then, and kind of jumping in the interview, the podcast always starts the same way. If you're okay with it, let's do that.
Whatever
Don,
you want to do.
Thanks. So Don, where are you from?
I am from Middletown, New York, which is in the Hudson Valley region, about an hour's drive north of New York City.
Like an hour. Or what I was going to say is that an hour with traffic or an hour without traffic, or just?
Well, it's anywhere between 2.5 hours or 45 minutes, depending on the time of day. Yeah. Now, if you happen to be going south when everybody's, in the afternoon, when everybody's leaving the city, you're fine. But if you're going to the city when everybody's going, because the city of New York now has about a population of like 8 million people. And then that population jumps to like 15 million every Monday through Friday, from to 5 or, during business hours. And There is a huge commute flow and, but if you're, when you live, there's a lot of people that are like firemen in the city. They live up here, but they do their job down there, or firemen or policemen or healthcare, or like I know guys that drive subway trains, so they live up here, but they drive to the city, and or guys that do things like trash removal or plowing the streets, or, all of the services that the city needs. The living in New York City is incredibly expensive. That's the point. So it's an hour north, depending on stuff.
Is it a pretty rural area? I'm imagining a little more farmland, a little more grassland, a little.
So it's relatively, the city of Middletown has about 26,000 people in it. And it's an incorporated city. That's just a very small town, basically. It's a city, effectively it's a city, but it's not a big city. It's not huge.
Okay.
And it's surrounded by shopping malls and, Walmarts and strip malls and, in the surrounding areas, which is called the town of Wallkill, which is much more, not as residential and a lot more business oriented. So,
okay.
And there's also a connection of two major highways, which is 84, which goes east and west, and then 17, which runs up into New York State. So it's where those two cross. So it's kind of crossroads. And the history of the town is to do with railroads. It's where the rail lines back in the 1800s all came together at Middletown. So it got a lot, a lot of industry. There was a lot of industry and factories and stuff in town in the 1800s. And prior to that, it was all prior to.
Do you still see a lot of those roots? I feel like these industrial towns and cities from earlier times in our country, there's still sometimes remnants of that around through the culture and through the town. Is that still kind of there?
Yeah, the brick buildings have all been bought up and turned into apartments. So it used to be a factory that made, it was a knitting factory that made women's stockings, but now it's apartments.
I bet it's got a lot of.
There's a brewery. There was a brewery that was an abandoned building when I was a kid, and it's now been turned into apartments.
That's wild.
It was an old beer brewery that went out of business because of prohibition.
Wow.
Prohibition killed them. Yeah, there was a brewery that made beer. They shipped beer all over the place, but then prohibition, they're done.
It was abandoned since the 20s, and then it just barely
When I was a kid growing up, they turned it into apartments after I joined the military in 1980. So
that's wild.
Relatively recently, but the thing was, for 60 years. But it's a brick building. It's just not going to go anywhere.
But I mean, that kind of speaks to kind of the just what the place would feel like. I think. I mean, anyway. Thanks for that analogy. That seems like that seems awesome. I love New York. It's a great city. Oh, all right. So you're in Middletown. And did you said you stayed there until you effectively left and went in the military? Is that right?
So at 18 years old, he graduated from high school in June.
Okay.
And then I left to report for basic training on the 18th of September. So I just basically took a couple of months off and then went straight into the military right after high school.
Were you a good student in high school, would you say?
No, I was absolutely terrible. I had really bad, and I had the attention span of a butterfly. And if I'm not interested in it, I don't care. I would do stupid things like read the entire book in the first week of class, and it was incredibly frustrating for me because I have a relatively high IQ and I'm very inquisitive. And if I'm interested in things and if it interests me, then I'm going to eat it alive. But if I'm in a room with 30 guys or 30 other people, other students, and the teacher is going at the pace of the slowest guy in the room,
Yeah.
I'm just like, nah, man, I just can't do that. So I just basically didn't go to high school. I spent my time playing Frisbee and hanging out and goofing off. And, interestingly enough, I graduated with a Regents Honors Diploma, which is something that New York State does. And I have no idea how, because basically didn't go. And this was an era when there was no internet, there was no reporting. They didn't, teachers, of course, would take their attendance and they would go, this guy never comes to class. And they would give me crap about it, but then I would, walk in and take their final exam and ace it. Most of the time because I was hanging out in the library and I got interested in economics. So I would read every economics book that was available and read the New York Times or, read the Wall Street Journal all day and stuff. So there was this one teacher that was really busting on me because I didn't go to his class. And I actually was correcting his final exam because he had mistakes on it.
That's funny.
So, yeah.
It's amazing what you can.
I was a good, could learn really, really well, but I was a terrible student for the machine. I just did not do well on the treadmill at all.
I mean, this tracks a lot with just my understanding of you. It's amazing what you can learn, isn't it? By just reading tangential information and understanding what's going on in the world. Like you talked about reading the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and all these economic periodicals. Like you just learn a lot about just about everything. If you just start reading those things, get some math, get some finance, get some business, get some general, you become a better writer, a better English student, just everything. If you just spend some time reading quality publications, I think there's so much value in that.
My brain feeds off of dopamine. So if I get interested in something and I'm interested in it, then I'm going to eat it alive. I'm just going to dive into it and consume everything and learn everything I can about it until I'm interested in something else, and I'll wander over there, and that'll be fine. It's just kind of the way I approach it.
So how did kind of that following the dopamine hits, which I can heavily relate to. How did that lead to you joining the military? I mean, you're in the library, can see you there, skipping school, which is super interesting, by the way. That you're skipping school and going to the library. I think that that is. I don't know. This is starting to paint a picture of you that I like. That's really interesting. So you're skipping school, you're going to the library, you're consuming this information that you find interesting, which makes perfect sense. And then how did you come across the military?
So my best friend at the time, Joe Phillip, just came up one day and said, hey, guess what? Join the military. I'm going to join the Air Force. I'm going to go put bombs on F-4s or fix F-4s. Jets in California, George Air Force Base, which doesn't exist anymore. And went, you did what now? He's like, why the hell did you do that, Joe? He goes, oh, think about it. You live in a barracks, you got a job. They're going to teach you how to fix airplanes. It's like, for Christ's sakes, they even give you uniforms, they even dress you. It's like, I'm like, okay, because, it really wasn't set up to go to college. Knew that I needed some kind of structure, and just because I knew that from my own experience in high school, I knew that who knows what would have happened to me if I didn't join the military. So I just said, okay, let me go talk to the guy. So I went down and talked to him, and long story short, joined the military and did 20 years.
You said you knew that you needed structure. Was that something that someone had told you or taught you, or was that something you were self-aware enough to be like, I need structure?
I just knew that left to my own devices, it was not going to go well for me. I just knew that I needed some kind of structure. And if you don't show up for work in the military, that's called AWOL.
Yeah, kind of a big deal.
You can be prosecuted under the Uniform Code of Military Justice for not showing up to work. So that's structure. Not like, well, we'll fire you. It's like, no, you're gonna go. Bad things will happen though.
Yeah.
I just needed that structure. That's all.
This was a short clip from the 4Fs podcast, where I sit down with founders, veterans, and executives, world-class experts that you won't hear on every other show, to talk about leadership, entrepreneurship, and personal reinvention. For the full conversation and more context, tap the link in the description or search 4Fs podcast on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. And if you're enjoying these shorter episodes, make sure to follow along so you don't miss tomorrow's clip.
Welcome to the 4Fs with Jeff.